And then we have to wait for it to go. And
The murder to happen.
We just look at each other. The murder to happen.
Tonight on Dateline.
Yeah. Did she or didn't
That is the first time anybody has said it sounds like a murder podcast song.
she? Kinda.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
I watched a lot of Unsolved Mysteries growing up.
Yeah?
You know?
Do you watch only Murders in the Building?
No.
Oh. Nope. See, Julie knows.
Is it good?
It's so good.
If somebody's not dead by 8 o'clock in the morning, I am not happy. I get up and watch all the movies.
I think we just found the title already.
Right?
All right, it is Real Estate for Real. I'm Eric Pettigo, and we're having another Realtor Roundtable, and I'm super excited. So, we've got Angie Miller, Missy Grady, and Julie Davis. Missy and Julie, you've both joined before. Angie,
I'm a newbie.
she's a newbie. So let's everybody welcome Angie.
Yay.
All right, did anybody listen to the one from last week?
The polysyllabic one?
Yeah,
That one?
polysyllabic.
That one.
I
Yeah.
did not.
No.
Not yet.
What's going on with you, Missy? We can't hear you. You're in there a little bit.
People have been asking me that
Yeah.
my whole life.
What's going on with
What do I
Missy?
do?
Huh?
Is it good?
Yeah, get a little bit closer, maybe.
Is
There.
it better?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right, now we've got you. Okay, well, we're not doing like a get to know you segment, really. You know, we're just going to talk about some stuff. So I jotted down some topics. I asked AI for a few ideas.
Oh, boy.
We'll see if you can tell which is which. But let's start with this because I just had an open house over the weekend. Crazy, right? You guys
Yeah.
remember those?
Yes.
Barely.
I did one a few weeks ago.
How'd it go?
Busiest one I've had in a million years.
Really?
I don't think I had had one since COVID.
Yeah.
And I had one because my seller wanted one.
Yeah?
And it sold the next day.
To somebody who came through?
Yeah.
Ah.
But I didn't sell it. They had an agent, which is
Okay,
fine.
but fine.
But it was packed the whole entire time.
Yeah.
Was
Wow.
Was yours?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
it? Did it
God,
go
I was
active?
hoping they weren't coming back.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like them.
Same.
Really?
I just don't.
You know, I think I was along those lines too, and then I feel like I don't know, I had one and there were people the whole time and I was meeting people and talking to people and I kind of missed it.
The worst part is when you have one and nobody comes.
Oh,
That's a
yes.
long
And you're
2
watching
hours.
the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really long 2 hours.
And it's funny that you say that because this seller, I had their house on the market like a year ago.
Okay.
And it didn't sell. It was priced too high. They needed to take wallpaper down and all that. So they did go off the market because they lost one they had a contingency on, expired, and they didn't sell the house quick enough. But anyway, right when we relisted it this recently, they said, we absolutely want an open house. And here I'm going, nobody comes. And then they're watching on their Ring doorbell, 30 people come through.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
We had so
kinda
much
dumb.
traffic. Like there was at least 12 groups who came through and then 8 or 9 groups of people who lived in the subdivision who just came through and wanted to see
I was
it.
going to ask you, are they people that are pre-approved working with agents mostly, or are they just lookers again? Getting out after
I believe a lot of the people who came through were actually pre-approved
Qualified,
looking.
yeah, good.
And this is what I did this time, and I think I'm going to do this moving forward. We went live Sunday. We were coming soon for a few days. We went live Sunday, and on that Sunday, I scheduled an open house. I wanted to bombard the house with as
I think
much as I
if
could.
you have a house that you think is going to be at a price point that a lot of people are looking,
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense because you get them all in at the same time as opposed to overlaps. You know, you could have 13 groups through in 2 hours, or you can have 13 groups through in a day and a half.
Yes.
So it kind of makes more sense.
Yeah. And get it out
I
of
think
the way.
they work if you strategically plan it like you did. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be the first Sunday, and
Missy, when did yours hit the market? And then you did the open Friday.
I think it was a Friday, and then that
I feel like we're
Sunday-
seeing a lot of
Yeah.
those happening where it is a very quick.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely was a Friday, and then I started the posting for it on social media, and then reposted again Sunday morning. And
I guess
it
I
was
better
busy.
rethink open houses, huh?
Yeah, it's so for a few reasons. And one, I feel like the strategy has changed a little bit because I remember we would list a house and tell me if you guys did it different or remember it differently. And if a month or so went by and we didn't have anything, okay, let's do an open house now. Let's find a way to generate some more buzz. We'll do an open house now.
Or
It was
right
something-
after a price reduction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was something we kept and pushed down the line a little bit.
Right.
Now the market's a little bit different.
Makes
that-
it more fun.
Yeah.
To do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that part of it. And then for me, and shout out to Logan Frazier, one of the youngest agents we have. When I had him on the podcast and asked, where do you get, you were young, you got into the business, where did you get your clients? And he said, I did open houses every weekend to get going. Anybody who said, I need an open house host, I volunteered. And I don't know if you guys are paying attention, but the guy's doing all right.
Yeah.
And
Does
so,
he still do them?
yeah. I saw him a couple weeks ago asking if anybody needed an open house host. And and I would kick myself a little bit, like, it's such a great way for us to meet potential clients.
I think part of it is finding out what you're good at and what you like. And you hope that what you like is what you're good at. Doesn't necessarily. Some people are just better at open houses than others.
Sure.
Sure.
So they should do a lot of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so how do you mean? Better how?
Well, talking to strangers, getting strange people to really open up to them.
Right.
I think following up, getting the right phone numbers, how many Mickey Mouses can there be in the world, So I think some people are better at that. Back in the day when we had floor time, I had an agent one time who would sell about $2 million every year off the floor. And agents would say, well, you give him all the good times. No, it was a rotation.
Right.
He was just that good.
He was
on
good at
the phone.
converting it.
Yeah. And we all have certain things that we can do better than somebody else, and we ought to be doing those things.
And I mean, part of our job, right, is being able to talk to complete strangers
Right.
and making them feel comfortable enough around us to trust us
Right.
to be their agent. And if nothing else, open houses give you some good practice
Right.
at those interactions.
Right.
No?
Yeah.
And if they're busy again, then there's the buzz. The people there feel the buzz, you feel the buzz, and it's exciting again.
Yeah.
Because
And
of our marketplace.
Missy's
think it
probably
puts
got
some
wine at
pressure
her
on-
open houses, so you can feel a buzz there.
No. I do not do that.
Don't encourage her.
I did think it put some pressure on the people that were kind of him-hawing around for a little longer, and they saw all those bodies, and
Right.
then they called their agent and
They're
wrote the offer.
understanding the market.
Yeah.
I mean, we can tell them, and that's one thing, but then when they feel it,
Yeah.
then it's different.
I think that's true.
So.
Yeah. And so, Julie, you brought up how many Mickey Mouses and stuff, because I always have a sign-in sheet. And I was telling my wife afterwards, because, after I follow up with everybody. I send them a text or an email, and I say, just thanks for stopping by. It's great to meet you. Let me know if I can help you with anything. That's it.
Right.
I don't keep,
That's what Logan does.
well, I'm sure I need to pick his brain a little
Right.
bit more. But as I was reading my sign-in sheet, I'm laughing. I had to get a flashlight on there and say, boy, people's handwriting gets really sloppy on these sign-in sheets.
Do you know,
somehow.
If you stand there, I always have a clipboard.
Okay.
Actually, I don't have a ton of open houses because I'm not that good at them. But if you have a clipboard with your things right there, with your pencil, and you're standing in the doorway, you say, now the seller wanted me to keep track of all the people that were in their home. What is your name? And you write it, then you can read it.
That's true.
So, because you're right, sometimes they just scribble and.
Or
yeah.
they say, I'll do it in a minute, and they circle back and maybe don't sign in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad taught me something funny early on in the business. He said, your open house sign-in sheet, you start by making up a name. John Smith, this phone number, and
Yep.
the email address or whatever. And then you might want to do another one. And that they repeat it if you write it out first.
Exactly.
Sure.
If you just
If
put
it's blank.
name, they all follow suit after. So they stop putting email or stop putting the phone number. So, yeah.
That makes sense.
He'd
That
make,
does
a,
make
make up a
sense.
name every time for
Smart.
the first line.
Yep.
That's smart.
This guy was already in.
I'll bring, for one, I'm cheap and I don't like to waste paper, but also strategically, I'll bring in whatever sign-in sheet I have from the last one. If there's a few spaces on that, I'll bring that as my starter sign-in sheet.
Smart.
Yeah. One of the reasons I like to try to control that too is if you have a lot, you forget who's who.
Yeah.
And so if they can't see what I'm writing, I'm actually putting things, couple with two children.
Yes, yeah.
who's
Blue
tall,
shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I would do that after they left. I'd make on
Yeah.
the back little notes to myself.
I put a
Just
dot. This one's maybe. potential.
I do find myself, if they're exploring around and, I just met him and we did names and all that, and then I'll be like, wait, what was the husband's name? And then I'll go and I'll look at the sign-in sheet. Like, oh, Steve. Hey, Steve.
Right.
Yeah, I forgot first. And hopefully that was them who signed in. But anyhow, just something to think about because they went away for a long time.
You know what else has gone away is the broker opens.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a big part of that is that everybody's so busy, who's going to come? The guy who wants the free lunch. It may not necessarily be the person who's got a buyer.
And everything's selling so fast. So.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I enjoy doing broker opens. It's been a while. I feel like I did one maybe a year ago, but I do like them if we can get people out.
Yeah.
It's always nice to get other eyes of our peers.
I went to one. Jamie Murphy had one about a year ago that I went to. That's the last one I've been to, and the last one I can even remember
It's been a while.
being invited to.
Do you know, if you go back into showing time into that, I guess it's comparison or competition or whatever, and look at what agent has been showing in the last 2 or 3 weeks in your price range, and then personally invite them to go out and look and give me an opinion, and I want to know what you think compared to other things, then you're getting the right people to go look through the house.
And I always felt like broker opens too. Yes, we're trying to sell the house, but maybe the whole point of that is to get some feedback from other agents that we can give to our seller.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We can go back and say, hey, we've got the whole forum too. That's tell us what you think. And
it helps seeing what price they think.
Yes. Yeah.
They don't always just take our word for it. But if there's 10 people.
It's amazing that they don't always trust the realtor they hired. But when they get the opinion of a bunch of realtors they don't know, they go, oh, okay, maybe so. Yeah, broker opens. Bring them back. I love lunch.
Right?
And
Drawings for prizes.
Well, it's fun to see each other.
Yeah.
That too.
So
I agree.
That too. No, we're missing that camaraderie. That's not a thing. But kind of to piggyback off the open house topic, because something that I struggle with is being a salesperson. That whole stigma. I don't like it, and I don't want to come off as like a pushy salesperson.
That makes you a good one.
Okay, but it's also made me lose potential clients before when I haven't been as good at following up and staying in touch as I have to. Just when I say, hey, I'm here when you need me. I'm not going to bother you. I promise. Just let me know. So, in your experiences, how do you find that where you find that line between kind of like hustling and getting out there and being in contact with people and staying in contact with somebody that you hope to convert to an actual client and being too pushy and too salesy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, how do you juggle that? It's hard for me.
This is a good example, but this morning, pardon me, I think there is a fine line on how much you contact them and how much space you give them. But this morning I sent a text out because I was going back and just like, okay, if I let anybody fall off the cliff here and not make contact. And one of them it's been a little bit. So I just sent a text and said, hey, just checking on you and your family. Hope everything's good. How's your son doing? Because they told me the son was struggling at school with being bullied, and just checked in. And she said, I'm so thankful that you reached out. We're going to try to get our credit up just a little bit. We just need until the 1st of July. We checked with our lender. So it was just a quick little contact, and, I'm sure she'll call back, once it's ready in time. But I don't know. It's a fine line of how much you bug them.
It's a fine line, and I think you have to really think about the personalities too, because it makes me think of this client I had, and they were I think she was an accountant. It was many, many years ago. But when I realized she doesn't want to hear me talk. Like, we're totally opposite in personality, and that doesn't mean that we're not going to work well together, but I need to know, like, knowing what they do and what their job is sometimes helps too, because then it helps you tailor your, like, what your normal personality might be to them,
Yeah.
And I think if they're in a job where they're used to, like, high power, fast moving, then we're probably not annoying them by checking it in with more frequency.
Right.
But if they're,
What you're saying is you adjust to them.
Yes.
And I think that's really important, that we recognize we have our own behavioral style, but we really have to recognize their behavioral style.
Exactly.
I never thought I was a salesperson. I still don't think I'm a salesperson. I never admit to being a salesperson.
Right.
I think I help guide and direct people through a difficult time in their life. But I had two thoughts while you were talking. One is, it's okay to ask. And I've lost clients because I didn't call enough, and I lost clients because I called too much.
I'm sure we all have. Yeah.
And so I kind of learned to say, hey, I need some feedback from you. And I know through this process, you're going to speed up and slow down and speed up and slow down. And that's okay. But just know that I care about that, and I want to speed up and slow down with you. So we have to communicate well, so I know where you are.
So not a bad idea to maybe just directly have that conversation and
absolutely.
say,
Right.
hey, how much do you want me to touch base? How much do you want me to interact? How much do you want me to check in and see where you're at?
Well, and when.
I don't want to bother you, but I
Right.
don't want you to think, like you said, that I don't care and I've forgotten about you.
Exactly.
And when. Of course.
Well, it's kind of like at the doctor. Do you prefer an email or a text or a phone call? You can even say to them, what's convenient for you?
And what time?
What time, if you have
You know,
little children or...
there's when's dinner hour. I'm not going to call during that time, So,
All right.
You can kind of tell in the beginning who needs more attention and hand holding and who
Right.
doesn't. But
Yeah.
just gauge each person differently.
And some people, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. If it's an open house, if it's a sign call, and they just want to go through a house and they want somebody to open the door. It doesn't matter how friendly you are. They're standoffish.
Right.
They're not trying to hire you.
Right,
No
right.
matter who you are or how you come across or anything. It's like a car lot.
It's not possible for 100% of the people to appeal to 100% of the other people. I think you have to recognize at least 25% of the population isn't just going to instantly click with you.
Right.
And you're either going to have to work really hard on that, or you just have to let them go find someone they do click with.
That is so hard for me. I
I know.
I
You don't
love
like
them
to
all,
lose.
right? I just want to love and hug on all of them.
I get along with almost everybody I meet. I like, so it's weird when I get that back, when I'm getting that vibe back of just keep your distance, please. I'm like, what?
Right? Like, what?
What do you mean?
It's probably not a you problem. It's probably a them problem.
But it feels like
Thank
a you
you,
problem
Missy.
when
It
you
does.
are like that with so many people and it
Yeah.
works well.
Yeah.
I get that. I get you.
Yeah, it's a weird thing where I'm just like, oh, do you not like me? What did I do?
How is that possible?
It's hard
It's
to not take it
inconceivable.
personally sometimes.
I think so. And we have to
Yeah.
remember, like Julie's saying, that there's a lot of people with a lot of different personalities, and
Yeah.
Not everybody meshes.
Julie,
You're
you
right.
might need to do your training again when we did the colors and
Oh, well-
numbers, and I forgot what it was called, but
Yeah, well, that's social styles, management
Yes.
styles, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love those.
it's
What's
helpful
that?
to do those every few years, because I had done them in corporate world, and then when you did it, I was like, oh yeah, I've done this.
Do you know, I do that, I've been doing it the last couple of years for the leadership thing, and IAR just asked me to do something like that. But every time I do that, I am reminded myself of, oh yeah, I think you're right. It's not something you learn once and you got it.
Right.
No, it's something you have to practice and drill and rehearse and be reminded one more time.
I'm still yellow and red, probably.
I need
but-
to
I
know
would
what
love
we're
to do
talking
that,
about.
yeah.
What is
It's been
this?
years since I did one.
Well,
the colors.
It's not the colors. Myers-Briggs has a lot of colors, which is what she's talking
Okay.
about. Myers-Briggs is a very in-depth test, and if you were going to be the boss of us, it would be worth having that really in-depth test.
Okay.
But we can't do that with our clients, and so there's another thing, and I learned it when I was teaching for the National Association, and it's called Social Styles by two psychologists, Bolton and Bolton, and they determined there were 4 different types, different behavioral styles. Actually, they only measured 2 dimensions, but if you measure any 2 things, you end up with quadrants.
Sure.
And so we talk about what quadrant are you in, and why you can connect more easily with this person, this person, and this person.
It's fascinating.
And so it's really helpful. The other thing is, you have strengths and maybe not some weaknesses over here, but when you're stressed, no matter which quadrant you're in, you go this way. So, the person who's real enthusiastic and bubbly is going to become very belligerent and a bully, and the driver is going to get real bossy, and
Oh,
so.
Yeah.
And
Can
when
we
you
do that again?
I want to do this.
It was so neat.
when you recognize that you're off the rail, you know how to pull yourself back, because stress does that to all of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And when you recognize that, you go, "Oh, crud! I need to just."
And it makes you realize what you are, and then when you're not meshing with that client, you're like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me or wrong with them. We're just
It's
just
not
different.
a match.
We're just not a match.
Yeah,
Yeah. I would like to do this.
Yeah.
yeah. It really is kind of a fun thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, okay, let me see what I want to get to next here. And also, it's not a super segmented, it's, if anybody, just talk, we're fine, but I'll throw some things out there. But we were just at our coffee and questions.
I thought it was good.
Yeah. And Mike Holdenettle does such a great job. And Mike Busher, too, when he jumps in. He came in late and sat in the back of the classroom today, but that's all right. But what we talked about a little bit is the more recent trend of constant surveillance in the house, audio, video recordings. And, I always check the listing sheet before.
It's not always accurate.
It's not always accurate.
No.
But then you also have to know kind of where to look when you go in. Okay, are there cameras in here? And then it almost feels weird when you tell your clients on camera, hey, we're on camera.
Right.
Because people want to walk in and they want to immediately start picking the house apart. And not in a mean way. I mean, sometimes in a mean way, but really what they're expressing is, I like this, I don't like that.
Right.
Well, and we don't object to things that we aren't going to buy. If you go to buy a new suit, you go
Yeah.
through the racks. And why did you pass that one? I don't know. I just didn't like that one. But when you get to the one, you go, wow, I really like this. I wish it was blue. Okay, maybe we can order it in blue. Maybe, all of a sudden an objection is a positive. A seller doesn't realize that.
No.
Right.
When they care enough to comment, they're usually interested.
Right. And sometimes people are just mean. And they'll
Well,
just
yeah.
come and make fun of something,
Yeah.
and it'll hurt a seller's feelings. So I always tell my seller,
Turn
maybe
your
think,
stuff off.
yeah, maybe so. You might, we'll get feedback. We'll get, if they want it, they'll make an offer.
Right.
If not, we'll get some feedback. But,
Constructive criticism.
you might not want to necessarily just eavesdrop on people walking through your house.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But
It's
do
an
you
idea.
feel that, I feel too though, a buyer now is like, I didn't say anything in the house until we got outside because I didn't want them to hear anything.
Right.
But that's when they're really making some decisions, is when they can say things out loud walking through the home.
Right.
So it's-
especially to each other.
To each other, and maybe not to us, maybe with us, but now they're
Exactly.
saving it all for when they go out to the driveway, and then of course they're forgetting things because they're not revisiting each room.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's a little detrimental in that way.
Yeah. I don't know. It's made it a little bit harder, I feel like, and like I said, I always try to encourage people, maybe just have the exterior ones on. But also I understand, security. If,
Right.
Well, and I
if a
think,
watch goes missing,
I think video is better than the audio. It's,
Yeah.
you don't want them to hear. If
Right.
they see you walk
Right.
through, it's
So maybe talk to your sellers about just running their video.
I think if they've got the means, they want to watch and listen. They
and
might
they-
just
they
be
can
that
agree-
kind of person.
they
that's
can
like,
agree with
Yes.
you all day,
Right,
but
right.
are they
They're
really?
just
Yeah, they're really
yeah.
going to do it. I don't know.
They're getting a little obsessive about who's in the house, what are they saying,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can kind of understand
been
that
mad at,
way.
like, have they shared with you that they're frustrated with what people are saying?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. I've had that happen. I've had that happen where, and they, who they get mad at? A lot of times they'll get mad at the agents.
The other
Right.
agent.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not them talking, maybe it's the buyers.
Mm-hmm.
I had a phone call before the people actually even got in the house because of something they said on the front steps. And immediately the seller called me and said, they criticized our landscaping. That was professionally, I'm like, whoa.
Right.
It's too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you don't need to hear everything that's being said. We'll get the feedback.
Right.
We'll track it down.
I'm guilty of not always looking if the audiovisual
Same,
thing, is in the
same.
comments, agent remarks. So I make sure when we're getting out of the cars, out at the street or the driveway, we have the talk out there.
Yeah.
And just say, I'm not sure, but there could be a ring app, there could be camera. And
Sure.
audio, so anything about the house, let's discuss it after we've left. And especially if you really like it, keep your poker face on.
Yeah.
Not that we have poker faces
True.
anymore with this market, but
Right.
still don't lay all your cards on the table in front of
But you know,
video and sound.
one thing I wanted to say today when we were in that other meeting, when they talked about people who go in houses and they all scatter,
Oh,
and the
yeah.
children are running all over. And this kind of comes back to what you're saying. When I have kids with me, first of all, I always try to engage them.
Yes.
You know, I let them play with my car keys. I let them help me with unlock the house. You know, all that stuff. But when we go ready to go in that first house, I'll say, wait a minute, let me tell you my realtor rules. Okay, when we go in the house, we have to all stay on the same floor. You can't go upstairs or downstairs until we all go. Okay, you know, you get their permission.
Right.
We go out another time, I'll go, oh, you remember the rules? Remember we talked about, we were, you know.
Right. That's great.
Here's the secret to that, I think. If you tell somebody after they do something wrong, you're criticizing them.
Yeah.
If you tell them before, you're helping, and then you're reminding. And mom and dad will say to them, oh, remember she said you can't go downstairs yet. So
You're right, but if you have to point it out, then they think you're telling their kid what to do or something.
exactly.
Right,
And then when we
right.
get to a house that's actually occupied, I'll say to the kids, put your hands in your pockets.
Right.
We
Yeah.
can't touch anything.
Set the expectation.
Yeah, that's smart.
Rule.
Then it's not a criticism.
But
Right.
on the flip side, I have told sellers with children with toys, kids are human. They might touch your child's toys. You know, be prepared. I mean, we can obviously
It's
set
a
the
flip
rules.
side.
It's a flip side. So I say just have that understanding.
Well, and if
that-
you have that special Barbie, put it away.
exactly, exactly.
Well, I guess I handle things a little bit different. I had
You touch
these-
all the toys and play with them yourself.
No, but
You like Barbies.
I had these clients, and they had young kids, and we get it before I could even say anything about, hey, let's stick together. One of the kids beelines up to the front porch and just starts rapid fire on the Ring doorbell, just ging, 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 ging. And
That's a behavior issue.
so what I did, of course, was laugh because I knew that somebody their phone
Right,
was just,
blowing up.
I couldn't help it. It was funny. And I said, hey, maybe
not break
I
that.
think they know we're here now, so we probably don't have to ring it anymore. But somebody got about 37 immediate
Wow. Oh
Ring
my
doorbell
gosh.
notifications, and I thought that was really funny. And that's maybe something
Well,
I
that
need to
is
look
kind
at.
of, I
It
mean,
is kind of funny.
that is funny. You just have
was
to,
so quick.
When stuff
Yeah.
like that happens, you just have to laugh.
Yeah,
It's
kids are
like,
kids.
okay.
They're kids.
Exactly.
Yeah. But no, I setting that expectation ahead of time. What I've started doing when because sometimes you'll go and the parents will say, hey, we're going to go in here. Let's all stay together and and the kid, I appreciate that. And
Right.
the kids will listen.
Right.
Sometimes not so much. And so then I've noticed, okay, here's what I need to do. And I'll look at my sheet and I'll say, all right, guys, it says on this house that we all have to stay together and not touch anything. It's right here, Oh, okay. And then, right. So,
Oh, that's a good one.
That is
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah.
It's always good to lie to children.
I'm going to use that.
Julie, you were giving us gold on potential titles of the episode.
Right.
They're just
Maybe we need to have several titles.
If someone's not dead by 8 a.m.,
Right.
and it's always good to lie to children.
Yes.
That'll be, I'll pick one. All right. Well,
I'm going to use that, though.
Okay.
I like it.
Right.
I do too.
It works. It works. It's
Now, do
I'm
you get
reading the rules.
Do you get the husband and wife on the same page because it's like kitchen?
Tell them that's the rule, too.
Right, that's the rule.
Right.
You guys have to hold hands now. And
Well, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't
I'm
have
kidding.
to tell, but sometimes you do.
But
That's
you're
the
right.
reality.
Some of the husbands and wives
They
do
are
that.
like
and that's
outside
really a
basement.
problem at an open house because you don't know those people.
Right.
If you know them
Right.
and they do that on you, you have some sense of
Right.
at least they're okay.
And that's hard too because it's hard to decide who to stay with. I've recently been in that, and it's like I noticed I was hanging with the wife more, and they didn't notice and they didn't care. Longtime clients, it's not a worry, but it's like, ooh, I probably should give him equal attention if he's looking at the plumbing and the electrical, and here I am trapped talking
Yeah.
to the wife and her mom, and yeah.
And people just tend to
It's human nature,
go
though.
exploring.
Yeah.
So I've got a story, and we all have learned by experiences. And
Oh, yeah.
when I very first started, I was taking a group through, and there was probably 9. It was in-laws. It was everybody, kids, and so we come in, and this is back before showing time. So you're We had to call the office. The office had to call back and give you
Forgot
the,
about
okay,
that.
right?
Yeah.
It's different. It's a different time.
More time consuming.
Yes. So, but we were supposed to be there. We got permission. The showing was confirmed. But we go in, half the group goes that way towards the bedrooms, and the other half go look at the kitchen. I was with the kitchen group, and it was like my first year. So I was scared to tell people, hey,
These are my rules, yeah.
and it is no time at all before the bedroom group comes running back. There's a guy in there sleeping. There's a guy in there sleeping.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Right? Like, okay. So, he comes out and he's all like, I said,
Why are there 9 people in my house?
yeah, right. And I said, did they not tell you? And he said, no, I had no idea. I'm
that's
really,
scary.
really sorry. But anyhow,
That has
it
a
was
lot of other scary
Yes.
possibilities.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, it wasn't our office. It was a different office that
Of course.
confirmed it.
I think that's always a little bit of a problem. And sometimes you don't know that the entourage is coming. Other times, they will give you a heads up or will ask. And, it's courtesy to the seller that the only people who go through are those people who actually have a say in the outcome.
Yeah.
So if you want to bring your dad, that's great. But you can't bring the cousin and the 3 kids, I had that happen with a family when they went to do the final walkthrough. No, or maybe it was just before they wrote the contract. They brought cousins, and all the cousins brought their kids, and all this kind of stuff.
Too much.
And the kids were throwing things on the ceiling,
Oh.
and like
Sticky
stuff. And it was stuck up there. We couldn't get it off. When we got it off, then the ceiling had to be painted. They just let the kids go crazy. So you really need, if it's your buyer's kids who are doing it, okay, we have to live with that. But this was the entourage kids that were.
Well, and in this marketplace, you can always say, hey, we might be overlapping with other showings, the way houses are selling so fast, and that kind of can stop.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't
the
need
entourage.
11 people here.
Yeah, like we might possibly be in an open house feeling situation.
I get back to your reading the rules off the sheet.
Yeah.
I think that is such a brilliant idea because
Thank you.
you can
Oh,
read
boy.
that. Let
Thank
the
you.
parent, he did. The parents hearing that, make sure they think that's the rule too. It's their
Yeah.
responsibility to
And-
rally their children.
Yeah.
And
Well, but everybody
it is
has
a
a
real
different
estate rule.
parenting style.
True.
Yeah.
And
Some are just completely hands off.
it's called free range.
yeah.
Free range parenting.
But I like that. Pretend like this is the written rule.
It's
Yeah.
the rule for everything,
Yeah.
every house.
Yeah.
Way to go, Pedigo.
Thanks. Just
Still
trying to
cheap.
help.
Do you know, that kind of reminds me though, and I've had this problem this year, and a couple of people on my team have as well. People buy a house and it's vacant, so they think between writing the contract and closing, they can go in the house every 2 or 3 days with an electrician and a plumber because they're going to fix and redecorate. They bring the decorator, and all of a sudden your seller is angry at you
Yeah.
because they're in the house too much. And the other realtor doesn't
like
think that's a big deal because they're going to redecorate. But they fail to realize if you order even, a piece of flooring that's not going to come in for weeks, if you sign the contract and order it, you just created a potential, mechanics lien
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that property because it takes effect
Wow.
as of the day it's ordered, not
Yeah,
the
I
day
didn't
it's
think about
done.
I've never thought about that.
So they really can't do that stuff. So how many times between writing and closing, final walkthrough, how many other times is reasonable to go through a house you're under contract?
It's communication, right? It's all up to the seller. Because I'm sure we've all been buyer's agent plenty of times where we've had to say, hey, can we come back through with somebody to measure for floors? Can we come
Sure.
back through to,
And that's reasonable.
Right. But you ask, you tell them what it's for, and then at some point, they might say, hey, how many more times is this going to be?
But I think it's the buyer's agent out of respect to say, hey, it's
Agreed.
not polite to go in 17 times vacant or not. Let's try to get your contractors,
all the same
on
day.
the same day at the same time. Or
Because
Right.
also, that's our time.
that's our
too.
job too, is
Yeah.
to say, hey, wait a minute, you can't have somebody going
Well, you know,
Constantly.
a lot of what we're saying today is about setting expectations.
Yes, we really are.
You know, if we set the expectation that, well, that's not typically done, that's a little unusual, blah, 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 blah. So let's see if we can go in twice. You know?
Right.
Right.
And I understand people get excited. You
Sure.
know,
Oh,
they've
yeah.
got a contract on a house now. They're waiting a month and a half. Sometimes they just want to go see it again. Or, well,
There's an
Yeah.
opposite to that too, though. Sometimes it's not good when they go back so many times and they say, "Oh, I don't remember seeing that," or "I don't like that," and then all of a sudden there's a change.
Well,
a
and you're
shift.
bringing contractors through, and all of a sudden, what they thought was going to be a minor deal is now a big
Right,
deal,
yes.
Yeah.
and now
can
you
be
got a real
risky.
problem.
It's
yeah,
tricky.
it's risky.
But I do feel a little sorry for buyers because they're looking one time, probably without their parents. My friend just did it without her significant other. It's like, you know, you're
No
writing the
time to
contract in
think.
the driveway. So you don't really remember what you've seen. You don't, you,
Right.
you want to show
Yeah.
your closest family because
And that makes total
we're
sense.
not doing second and third showings like we used to do.
Right.
So
Right.
the time, our time is different in different ways than what
Right.
it had been.
it's such a bizarre process. I had a client mention this to me once when we were out looking, when he wrote an offer on a house finally and got it. And he just made a point that I never even thought about. He said, it's so weird that I'm making the biggest purchase of my life after 45 minutes of being inside of it.
Yeah.
He goes, if I'm going to buy a car, I can test drive it for 2-3 hours. You know, you look at you can spend weeks trying to pick out some new bedding, or you know,
Right.
but for a
Right.
house, for this huge purchase, you walk through usually in under an hour, and you have to decide, am I going to tie
Immediately.
myself to this for the
Right.
next 30 years? It's
Yeah.
crazy how
And
this
am I
works.
going to give up inspections so that I can get the house? You know,
Well,
that's the
nowadays,
worst
yeah,
thing for a
nowadays
buyer.
that's a thing.
Yeah.
It's just it's weird how quickly people have to decide on this huge monumental
Yes.
You know,
decision.
I feel that same way about choosing an online lender.
Oh,
You know, people think that they're going to give me $250,000. No, you're giving them a mortgage. They're not giving you. I mean, okay, yeah, you get money, but you're giving them the mortgage. You're the one that's driving the boat. If I'm giving somebody $250,000 debt on me, I want to be able to look them in the eye. I want to be able to
Yeah.
talk to them when I don't think my payment's right, or I want to
Sure.
I want to call somebody when I want to make sure my taxes were paid. And I just am shocked at the people who, well, they'll just go online and he was really nice. Yeah, he's really nice, but after you write the contract, we'll never talk to him again.
It's the disposable society of
Yeah.
things and the fast pace of everything.
well, these national lenders have figured out that all I have to do is put this out there and let somebody click a few times, and I'll give them a pre-approval. I mean, it's not loan approval; it's pre-approval. Those are pretty easy,
Right.
You know, minimally invasive. They just, oh yeah, I make this much, and this is that. And okay, here's your pre-approval. Go get a house, you know, and we'll catch it in underwriting and shut it down when the real stuff turns up. But that's what they've done. But I think it's our job, communication. Say, hey, you're going to be a lot better off if you talk to this person, where you can go in there, like you said, Julie, look them in the eye and talk to them. It's more and more of these are popping up, and it's I think part of our job is to help educate people on what's going to
Guide
make
and
the whole
educate.
transaction go smooth. But yeah,
Agree.
I had a neighbor who was a stockbroker back in the day when they would call you on the phone trying to sell you stock all the time. And I said, how do you make those calls stop? And he said, I always tell him I only do business with people I can hurt. I thought, well, that sounds a little Godfather-ish, but that's not what he meant. What he meant was, if your reputation matters, you're going to take better care of me than someone who doesn't care what I say about them on the phone or to neighbors or friends.
Right.
And that's really true.
That is true.
people I can hurt. Julie, I'm gonna write that one down.
Right,
too.
another
Jeez.
title.
You're giving me gold here. I might just bank some of these for
I was just
future
going to say
episodes.
exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about this. How often do you TikTok? Are you on there? Do you scroll? I know you make videos.
When my children send me things I need to watch.
Okay. Julie, TikTok?
My team does all that stuff. I don't even look at Facebook.
Okay. All right.
And it's terrible. I play games. I guess if I spent the same amount of time I spend playing games, I'd have time.
Right.
But no, I'm terrible.
Well, so I try to, like, I don't put listings on TikTok because it's really hard to stay localized. They just kind of, your TikToks kind of go all over. Facebook, put listings on Facebook because you can narrow that down. People around here are going to see it. But TikTok, you never know who's going to come across. So it's not necessarily the most effective tool for promoting your listings. But what I try to do is just make content, real estate related content, kind of like the podcast.
Right.
And I've recently been putting clips from the podcast on TikTok. And so I put one on from last week's episode where I was talking about the percentage of transactions, of home transactions that involve realtors. It's like 90%. And then the percentage of people who have used a realtor for a previous transaction who will also use a realtor again is pretty close to that, 90%, which is
Awesome.
It's great, right? It's an excellent return rate.
What's the percentage of the same realtor?
Actually, only 30 to 40.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they will use a different one. Then, so the point I was making was, people see value in the service we provide, and these are the numbers that back it up.
Right.
And so I put that out there, and I got some feedback, and somebody said, that's because we feel forced to use realtors. We feel like we have to. And I said, how do you mean? You know it's an option, right? You don't have to use a realtor. It's a choice that you make. You don't have to. How do you mean? She didn't respond, somebody else did. And they said, maybe not forced, but conditioned. We feel conditioned to think that in order to get the best, results, we have to use a realtor. We
control the buyers.
Right.
And that's, so maybe that, but if you're going to put a product, are you going to put, if you're going to put a store, are you going to put it someplace where there's no traffic and nobody's ever going to come?
Right.
Are you going to put it where all the other stores are? So, it is a choice.
It is.
And,
it is.
And I'm sorry we're in the strip mall with all the other realtors, but that's kind of.
Yeah. She went on to say something like there are some really good ones out there, but there are some not so good ones too, and that's
It's true. Sure.
and I responded and said, you know what?
You're right.
You're not wrong, but when you say conditioned, it implies that you're being falsely led to believe that a realtor is beneficial when one who isn't looking out for your best interest and might not help you make the best decisions, right? But a good realtor 100% adds value, and I'll stand by that. She agreed, but it's the whole part of, do you feel like that? I had never really considered before that people feel kind of forced or conditioned to believe that they have to use a realtor to buy or sell. And I said, well, you can do it. Try it. Stick a sign out there. There's nothing stopping you.
Are you talking just only on the selling side or the buyer or both? Or
Both all together,
but what
right?
what do they expect when it's listed with an agent?
Somebody did say to see
the
a
seller's
house.
not going to show them the house.
To see a house, to sell a house, something we have to use a realtor. I said, well, okay, if you want to see a house listed by a realtor,
Right.
you have to contact a
Right.
realtor to get in there.
But you could call by owner.
You can call by owner.
If
But-
they'll call you back.
Yeah,
Well, and if they are available when you're available. you
right.
know. So-
But you don't. It's if you're shopping for cars, and the car you want is at a car dealership, you have to
Go to
you have to go
right.
through the dealership,
Yeah.
right?
And talk to one of those.
You have to. That's
Yeah.
I don't believe that we're the only people in the world trained to do what we can do.
no.
The average consumer is smart enough to learn what we know and to be able to do it. The problem is that they've learned something else. They have a different skill and a different job. And they do know their house well, which is good. But
Right.
what's more important in a sale is to know the buyer well.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're showing houses, you're showing that buyer what that buyer needs to see. And that might not be the same as the next guy who's looking at that same house. And that's the piece that the for sale by owner can't can't do for themselves.
Sure.
I always tell for sale by owners that I feel that we're really worth what we get paid, but I don't mind not getting paid for that which I don't do. So if you want to do my job, that's really okay. I would hope you'd cooperate with buyer's agents, because there's a lot of buyers who
Right.
won't do anything without it.
Yeah.
But if you want to, but what happens? That's what you can say. But the reality is, the for sale by owner doesn't know how to price his house,
Right.
and just as many underprice as overprice.
Sure.
Yes.
You overprice, it doesn't sell. You underprice, you just gave the money that you thought you were saving to the buyer.
Right.
But in their mind, they get so locked in on that percentage,
Saving that.
right? That Missy, is that you?
No,
It's not me.
Not this time.
Julie. Is that your TikTok going off? You getting TikTok notifications?
Yeah, am I going to be
over there?
TikTok famous now?
I get a lot of spam.
We all do. Yeah. But no, you are 100% right. And that happens a lot. And I've told stories on here before of people I knew who were wanting to go by owner. And I asked them what they were listing. And they were about to give tens of thousands of dollars away.
Right.
Even after,
Even after
a
Right,
commission,
right.
right? And so, and thankfully they took my advice and listed and put more money in their pocket, even after paying realtor commissions.
I think the other thing is, when you start down, when you look at on paper, okay, I'm going to show my house, I'm going to write a contract, and then I'm going to talk to a title company, and we're going to go to a closing. Okay, how many transactions do you have that actually go that way?
Right.
Somewhere in the middle of that, there's a left turn and a right turn, and we have a hoop to jump and a bridge to go under. And it's a very winding road.
We're problem
And
solvers.
Exactly. We are really tenacious problem solvers.
Sure.
And if you're not with someone who's good at that, how do you bring someone in the middle of the ninth hour to try to straighten out your mess?
Yeah.
And what we're good at wasn't just from our first listing of a home like they would be doing for their own home. It's obviously years of,
Experience.
and in talking to other agents and learning new things to do.
Yeah.
And lots of experience and losing a lot of sleep in those early years over real estate,
Right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, Julie, these are roads that we've been down before, so
You learn.
we know when that left turn
Yeah, and-
pops up, how to navigate that.
And you don't know going into a transaction which hurdles you're going to have.
Right.
Because they're created by title work and buyers and,
And so that pushback, and I feel it's a vocal minority, because I gave the numbers. The people who use us again and again and again, because they know the value. And there are people there, every time I put something out there and somebody starts pushing back, I get just as many people saying, I would never, ever do anything without my realtor. I've had nothing but great experiences. And that's the majority. They just aren't always, voicing that. They're busy doing their normal stuff. They don't have time to troll people on TikTok. So, but it's good. I mean, you hear the negative, but the numbers state that that's not even close to the reality of the situation.
We
In
just
reality,
have so much more access. Like, if a buyer is going to go try to buy a buy owner, and let's say it is super overpriced, they may not know that that's really overpriced.
right?
We have access to MLS to pull comps for them. They don't have that access.
More history of
Yeah.
the property. Well, right now, buy owner to me is a little bit more scary with all of the extra forms we're using in the last couple of years in this crazy marketplace that were new to me.
Yeah.
I had a client tell me one time, he was a good old boy from Texas, and he said, well, I won't use the language he used. He said, the problem was most people are too busy worrying about the ants in their petunias while elephants are stomping on their watermelons. And
Write that down.
and what
How do you spell petunias?
Right. PT.
but the point is, a seller is trying to sell his $300,000 house, and he's worried about a couple of little percentage points.
Yes.
So let's see, let me get that right. He's willing to lose a $295,000 buyer because he doesn't want to pay a $5,000 fee. Does that make any sense?
Right.
And
It's such a small percentage.
you got to stop chasing those petunias.
Yeah.
Or ants in the petunias.
Right.
Yeah, you can focus on the big picture. I finally gave up on a guy that I've been trying to get to. I've talked about him on here several times. One of my best friend's dad is just so locked in on buy owner, and it's still for sale, and he's trying. And I've known this guy forever.
This was like several podcasts.
Yeah, oh yeah, so many. I've talked
One of
about
your
this
first
forever.
ones, yeah.
Yeah, and so okay, just
why
let
is
me
he
know.
still on the market? Price?
Started with price, way too high, and now it's just a matter of he's been out there forever, and the amount that he has dropped
Would have.
is a realtor commission
Yeah.
many times over. But I
And more money for him.
but he's still so just against, and it's not even that. He's willing to pay a buyer agency fee. He just doesn't want to pay
A listing fee.
a listing fee.
But he's
And
lost so much money already by not doing
that-
it the
it's
first time.
just so locked in on that
Yeah.
one thing.
Maybe
and so
it's you.
it's okay. I
But
told him,
you
say,
know,
hey, we're always going to be friends. You
at-
just let me know if you
At this point in time, for him to cave in is to say I was wrong and somebody else was right.
That's
And that's
hard
a
for
real,
people.
Yeah.
well, it's hard for all of us
Yes.
to say that, you know?
Yes.
So I get it.
Yeah, yeah, and and we had it. Hey, if it doesn't sell by this date, I'll sign something with you, and that's come and gone a long time ago. Because when I followed up, he said, "Well, I've got a couple more showings lined up," and I said, "Okay, just so you know, you will have them trickle in. They will come in. Showings will keep trickling in. Eventually, somebody will probably make you an offer that you're okay with." Then they'll probably do an inspection and they'll have a buyer's agent. You're going to pay them anyway, and then it's going to be them versus you, and you're going to get hit with repair requests, and the appraisal is going to happen. And if it's short appraises, then I start going through all the steps and
Right.
everything, and or you could just let me handle all that,
And I'll do an open house and sell.
right? And you can just go on about your life, and I'll handle all that,
Right.
and we can be done with it.
There's
And-
not a lot of motivation there, it sounds
and
like.
you can put this money in your pocket because I know how much they owe. I know what we could sell it for. I said you could put this much in your pocket and just be done.
Won't do.
Nothing. So okay,
well.
it's fine.
Hey, he
It's-
knows where to find you.
Yeah. Yes,
exactly. So I said, hey, you and me will always be fine. Don't
Yep,
worry.
right.
Do you know
I mean,
when that comes to a resolution, no matter how, you need to put that on your podcast because probably everybody out there is wondering.
It's curious
what
about this one.
got?
Yeah,
yeah.
and eventually he'll sell it. It'll sell eventually. It will. I mean, they all sell eventually, right? You keep
Yeah.
dropping and dropping and dropping. Eventually, something will come along and buy
So
it.
it'd be
Like a one-week
interesting
listing.
what price you quoted him and the time loss
Yes.
and what it sells for.
Yes.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to mention, the monthly, every month
Yeah.
payments,
And
utilities,
what the-
taxes.
If it would have just been pay your fee, you might have been way ahead.
Yeah. But it's, sometimes we can do our best to explain these things and it doesn't matter because, like Julie said, it's nobody.
Beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
Just
And
move on.
And it's okay. It's all right. Can't get them all,
Right,
and that's okay. And
Do you
some
know-
people are just in their ways.
It used to be that if a house was on the market for like 6 months, people would say,
What's wrong?
"What's wrong with that?" When are they asking you that
Like
now?
6 days.
I
Right.
know.
Right.
Yeah,
or the sellers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh
What's
my
wrong?
gosh. I had a coming soon, and they were all wound up about the fact that I didn't have more than 3 showings lined up for Monday.
Yeah.
And I blasted it on the social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, and coming soon. It's almost time. It's time to make your appointment. I mean, all
Right.
the things. And then the day of, a bunch of
A
showings
bunch happened. Right.
piled in, and it sold that night. But their expectations are just like, why aren't there more showings, or why is it still in the market? And it could be for 1 or 2 days.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think with the coming
should be
soon,
30 or more.
people don't necessarily schedule until it goes live. Like in that situation.
Yeah,
Right.
I've seen it. both
And I have
ways.
one right now. It goes live Friday. We have 6 scheduled, but I assume we'll have a ton hit when it pops Friday.
The coming soons you got to be careful with because you can go up to 45 days on this. Is
You
that
go
right?
too early. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
and if you throw them out there too early, a month in advance,
Right.
nobody's going to schedule a showing, and then
Right.
there's nothing that triggers that buyer, that agent, a couple days in advance necessarily. We rely a lot on everything. Okay, we rely a lot on automation to.
Yeah.
Hey, this listing just went active. Here's a price drop. We get notifications sent, but there's nothing that lets people know 2 or 3 days in advance.
Yeah.
This coming soon. that has been here for a month is about to go active.
I agree with you about putting them out there too soon. The other thing is, and initially I didn't really like coming soons because when it did hit, you never got any notice. It
Right.
seems to me they ought to, when it gets activated, it ought to be show
Like a
up as an
regular
active.
active, right.
Yeah, or put a new category in or whatever, because you're missing that.
Yes.
So I kind of didn't like that. But the truth of the matter is now I do, because it's so hard when things come on the market. You've got to deal with your client's schedule, your schedule, your kid's schedule, all these things. But if I know a week ahead that it's coming, I can plan around that
Exactly.
important event. So I kind of like them now, and I like being able to go out and schedule the time I want my appointment early.
I'm glad you said that, because I noticed that at one point too, because coming soons I think were made as something to help out our sellers, to generate buzz and generate interest. But then I noticed, this is good for buyers, because now when something hits, we don't have to drop everything and
go
get
in an
there
hour.
today. We can plan a week in advance. Oh, hey, this hits Saturday, so we have to figure out a way for us to get in there. We have to clear our schedule and make this happen, instead of just being like, oh, well, my kid's got a game and this just hit. How do I,
Right.
So I wonder if that was an intended benefit for buyers too, or if that was just kind of like
I
hey,
think
A
that's
bonus.
a market.
Yeah.
The market's driven that.
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
What about these coming soons, that show the date and you tell your buyer this one's going to be coming soon on this date.
yeah.
And the agent moves the date up all of a sudden. I mean, I
Without-
thought the rule
without
was to,
telling
without
anybody.
right.
They can move it up, but
Yeah.
but why would you not put a message? Well, you could to anybody who made an appointment.
I had
Right.
one, thank God I checked in with them and just said, hey, do
Randomly,
you by
yeah.
chance have any of those pictures yet? Or whatever annoying comment I asked. And they said, oh, well, we're going live tomorrow. And I'm like,
Oh,
holy crap, I got to
Right.
make my appointment. Because I thought I had 5 more days or
Right.
whatever it was. But yeah, that's kind of hard sometimes. And then the buyer,
It is.
if it's moved up, the buyer goes, well, you told me this date. was
Kind
when
of
we were-"
messes with the whole, like it
Yeah.
should stay the
Well, it
date.
hurts
Because I'm
your-
going, you can't see it until this date.
It
And
hurts
then-
your credibility.
It does.
Because
Exactly.
they think you're either not in the know or you didn't stay
Yeah.
on top. Yeah, it's
Right.
not fair.
I don't know that there's a good answer to that, because I know me personally, I just had one. Our coming soon, our activation date was a week later than we ended up actually going active, because the house needed cleaned out,
You
a bunch
pushed
of
yours
stuff.
out.
Yeah, we pushed ours
Yeah.
up, and we were planning on a week and a half or so, and then the seller got a hold of me and said, well, actually, I recruited some help. We're going to be ready this weekend. And then, so now who do I call? Like, okay, right. So the people that had reached out to me about the house, I
Right.
let them
Right.
know.
Right.
But
yeah, if it's just an agent that just saw it and told
Right.
the buyer about it, you don't know that.
Exactly.
It's almost like we have to set a notification for ourselves on MLS, which
Check it
that's
every
more
day.
work too. Like,
right.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Time.
There are some complications with coming soon that I'm not sure how to correct and fix.
I
But
kind of have that same problem with when people put out a notice of offers, that you have to have an offer. If you're going to put a cutoff on the offer, 2 hours is not enough time. Sometimes you can't even get a hold of your buyer
Right.
within.
Right.
I think you're doing a seller a disservice when you make it that quick.
Do 24 hours after maybe
Yeah,
they
or,
decide.
or at least half a day.
Right.
So that you've got the night that
Right.
Yeah.
I've had sellers though where we were going to let it go through the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday we were going to review offers, and that's what they wanted to do. That's what we put out there to everybody, and somebody came through Saturday and made one that they just wanted to take, and they can do that.
Right.
And I said, well,
Yeah.
but we told everybody, and I said, yeah, don't care. We don't want to be out of our house for another day.
We're tired of taking our kids and
Yeah.
our dogs constantly.
So you might be leaving money on the table. Don't care. This is more than we were expecting anyway.
Yep.
We're just going to take it. And
yeah.
that, I mean, what do? You
Well,
have
you
to
kind
do
of
what they tell you to do.
egg on your face, a
Yeah.
little bit.
Had a lot of upset agents with me
I bet.
after that happened. You can blame Shelly
Because it was
Barrett.
before they even scheduled their showing.
Yeah, blame Shelly.
Was she the listing agent?
No, I was the listing
Buyer.
agent. She
Oh,
brought
she-
in the buyer. She brought in the offer.
Yeah, that happened to the one I was talking about on Monday. I still had showings lined up for yesterday, and the buyers made a great offer and
Right.
on your team. And my seller goes, "We don't want to wait for these other showings. They have a little baby.
Right?
Right.
He's a doctor resident. Their lives are complicated, and
Right.
they wanted to go with it."
Right.
I mean, I know sellers have been making out like bandits the last few years, but you still have to feel for what they're going through sometimes with this process of
Oh, yeah.
they are bombarded. I mean, ultimately, the end result is hopefully good for them.
But they have to leave their house. They have to take the kids. They
It's
have
a
to take
whirlwind.
the dog. They have to take
It
the
is.
cat.
I mean, I've even told some people we might want to list it and then you just leave for the weekend.
Yeah.
That's the market we're in. It might be easier for you with the pets, the
Yeah.
kids, just to
go somewhere.
go.
There's more value than just money. It can
Yeah.
be the convenience
The
of
stress.
and
Yeah.
less stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and the coming soon thing also on that same house. I keep going back to
That's
and
all
it was
right.
my brother's house, and I've sold it 5 times.
Oh, jeez.
But the coming soon risk also is we set the coming soon, and 2 houses came on the block during the wait period, and at different prices, and they're going, well that one's too low, and that one's higher. Can't we get that? So that threw off the whole pricing
Thank
thing.
goodness he's loyal and grew up in the industry, right?
Yes.
Well, no, it was my brother's old house.
Got it.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
not
okay.
recent at all. But yeah, that threw it all off, and they started questioning my price.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you're on that risk.
Yeah,
And you also have to remind people, hey, just because that's what they're asking doesn't mean that's what it's worth.
right.
You know, it's, well,
But
this
they
one.
could also want to adjust their price, and then you've already advertised at one price, and that can look really
Right.
bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they
Really
were
bad.
worried about the competition. I said,
Right.
we can move this up, but I want to make sure I, put that out there. Our coming soon has now changed to this date.
Right.
Whatever, but because I hate that when you think it's a date and then it's
Mm-hmm.
pushed
You know,
up. It's
Sorry about that. Yeah.
some of the things, what you're bringing up an interesting point, because some of those problems are created because the agent isn't on top of things, the agent doesn't communicate, and a lot of it is we have to go with what the client wants.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's really unfair for another realtor to be mad at you over something you didn't
can't control.
that was a decision made by your client.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not your fault. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some other agents want to just get mad at the realtor, and
Yeah.
no.
They forget that the seller is driving the
That-
decisions.
you said it
All the
exactly.
time.
I think some agents feel like your job is to control your clients and make their decisions for them and not allow them to make certain decisions. And
Well, I think
it's not our job.
it is your responsibility to inform.
To inform,
Yes.
of course.
And to take a leadership role in the guidance part. And some agents don't do that. They just say, what do you want to do? No.
Right.
You have to have that. But if it's somebody takes a leadership position and still they come up with a decision that's contrary to what
Right.
their own listing agent might think, I don't think you can't get mad at the...
No.
And as agents, we have to keep lines of communication open. Like I will always level with another agent. Just, hey, I'm just working for my client here, and here's the conversation I had with them. So just so you know, I'm doing my part, and like maybe they're acting unreasonable, or but just so you know, like I'm trying.
Right.
I'm trying, but ultimately, I work for them, right? So, and whatever that may be, whether it's unreasonable repair request or whatever, or they refusing to come up in price or to come down, in negotiations, whatever it is, I'm okay to say, hey, let's step to the side for a minute, and you and me just talk agent to agent, just so you know. I'm just doing my job. I did tell them this. This is not, you and I should not be mad at each other
Right.
about whatever's happening here.
Well, and I love sharing those conversations because
It needs to
those
happen.
those are the words that you're saying that you talked about, and then the other agent can take them, tell them, repeat them,
Right.
and it can sometimes work in your favor to make some reality and rational decisions.
Right.
I think we have a responsibility to represent our client to the very best of our ability, but how we deal with the other agent can still be respectful.
Yes.
And
100%.
there are some agents I compete against all the time, or I'm always on one other side of the transaction, and it goes very smoothly. Everybody's doing the best they can. It all comes down to tone.
Yeah.
It's the tone that you use, the phraseology that you use, that makes that message delivered correctly or creates antagonism. But it doesn't make any good. There's no point to be benefit or no benefit to making the buyer mad at the seller's agent, or
Right.
you got to leave the agents
Or at the
out of
seller.
that.
You know, I always say at this juncture when we're trying to come together on an offer, we are a team, even though we're on opposite sides. We are all fighting for the common goal of
Yeah.
getting this house under contract so that you can buy and they can sell.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why we're all here.
That's why we're all here.
You want to sell it, they want to buy it.
Right. So
Let's figure this
That's
out.
right.
And we act as a buffer a lot of times
Right.
because, they'll say, well, here's my request, whatever it is, and you tell that agent, blah, blah, blah. You say, yeah, okay, I might reword it a little bit,
Right.
but sure.
Yeah.
I'll try to pass that
And-
message
but-
along.
But you have a great voice, and you can
Well, thanks.
you can deliver.
like a radio voice.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I'm serious. There's some people who just have that tone in their voice, and delivery becomes a problem more than the words.
Yeah, tone is everything.
Right.
And I have to teach my kids that all the time. It's not what you say, it's how you
Texting
say it.
tone,
Yeah.
Yes.
verbal tone, all of it.
Yeah. I try to. I text when I have to, but I so much more prefer talking because I feel like for instance, if I have a listing and we get multiple offers, and let's say we get 10 offers, after my sellers pick one, the other 9, I call. I actually call. Say, thank you for making the offer. I just want to tell you, we took one that had this and this and this, not the exact terms, but just so you know, but I just want to let you know I appreciate the time.
And it was a
you put
good
in.
offer,
Right.
Right.
And I know some people send out like a blanket text, they'll do a thing, but it takes 10 minutes to
Yeah.
just make a call and have, and
Agreed.
I don't know, it's something about establishing those connections, and I don't know.
And if your buyer doesn't win, it's nice that you can say, hey, he called me, this is why we
Exactly.
Right.
weren't chosen.
Yeah.
And
And
it
it's helpful.
keeps your rapport with them.
Well, and sometimes helps you deal with your own buyer the next time.
Exactly.
Because sometimes they have to lose one or two before they figure out that what
How
you're
to
telling
switch.
them
Yeah.
is really right.
Right. Or maybe we'll do this instead of this. Or,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of just getting a text that says,
Sorry.
hey, took a better offer. Thanks. It's better? Okay. What do you mean? Yeah. All right. But,
Exactly.
Right. Better isn't always the dollar.
Right.
Right.
Right. So you say, hey, it was really close. Yours was really close, but this one was cash and they didn't have this. And so,
That's a little more helpful.
yeah. Right. Then they can take that and hopefully turn it into something with their buyer in the future. So,
I had that last Saturday, a different house at multiple offers, 4.
congratulations.
Thanks. It was priced right.
That's how you do it.
But I did have to give the news to the other 3, and it's interesting how you might get one in your multiple offers that are a little cranky about it
Yeah.
and don't understand why theirs wasn't picked. And I get it, that the pressure from the buyer, and they have to go back and explain it, but it's time consuming to get on that call and be like, I don't have time to do all this. I was trying to go into a concert too. But
We still have to have
You
lives.
had a personal life?
Right.
I did.
How dare
I
you.
was George Michael tribute band.
Ooh.
My best friend. But anyway, I was trying to give explanations over text because of the convenience of it.
Yes.
And where I was. But I also provide a signed receipt on every single offer that is rejected.
Agree.
And I'm not seeing that we're getting that every time. And I know that it's time consuming, but I do. As soon as I got to my computer, I
the right
made
thing to
the
do.
seller sign each one of those receipts in rejection.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important the buyer knows their offer truly was presented.
Yeah.
It was not chosen, and the seller has signed off. That
But
they
he
didn't.
saw it. He or she
Yeah.
saw it or whatever.
But I'm seeing a lot of agents not give those rejection receipts.
I think you see more that don't than
Don't.
do.
Correct.
But I think
I'm a
the
firm
do,
believer in
I
them.
think the do is growing.
Good.
So I know a lot of Remax agents are doing that. So
Well,
I
it
think
really
they're getting that training
closes
as well.
that transaction out,
Yeah.
technically.
And I feel as a company, we should absolutely provide those to other companies.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's the right thing to do, and I think we've all had buyers like, well, did they even Did they even see did they even
Right.
see ours? Are you sure? I'm like, well, yeah, they did. But when you get that back, it's, see,
yeah.
they saw it and they signed that it's a no.
They know they didn't get lost in the shuffle.
Yes. Yeah. All right. We are an hour 10 in. I'm sure you ladies have stuff
God,
to
we
do
could
today.
talk all day.
Gosh.
Yeah. But I do, before we go, I do want to know one thing, because AI gave me this one and I thought it was interesting. I'm 12 years in, and I mentioned earlier that, a lot has changed, like as far as just scheduling showings. So from what I've seen in 12 years, our industry and the way we do our jobs has changed significantly. So, and I can feel it now because, like I've mentioned AI a few times, the way that that's becoming involved. What do you think in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you have any idea of what our job might look like?
Wow.
I don't know what it's going to look like tomorrow.
What
Right?
changes
Right.
will happen in the next, and I'm not talking about the market. Everybody wants to know what the market's going to
Just
look
of
like.
how
Yeah.
we perform in our
Yes,
industry.
yeah.
Like our day-to-day.
Like now we can hop on and we can get all the, I still print out listing sheets. I don't know that I necessarily need to.
But you didn't like to waste paper.
I don't feel like that's a waste though.
kidding.
But
Right.
maybe it is, because I can hop on my phone and just pull up the
I
listing.
can say one thing. I cannot wrap my head around letting AI answer questions to a client that comes in through Personally or Zillow or
Right.
whatever, and it starts to shoot back. I'll get back to you in a little bit. And what time do you want to meet this time? I'm a control freak. There's just no way I can.
You're making
Same.
me like palpitate thinking about that.
I can't wrap my head around letting AI ever take care of my business.
Right.
I think AI will help write our descriptions.
Yes.
You'll see different adjectives than what we have typically used. The other thing I do think that I hope will happen is that they'll come up with some kind of software for the title companies, where you put the address in once, the price in once, the people, you put all this stuff in once, and you hit a button and out comes the mortgage docs and the closing docs, and you don't need a separate piece of paper for every, you'll come back and sign it, re-sign. That's a whole piece of paper. It only says that one
Yes.
thing.
Right.
There's a bunch of things like that.
Right.
I think it's going to streamline, or could streamline, the
behind the scenes.
the mortgage process and the title process, at least the paperwork piece of that. And
maybe some of our paperwork too, because
Maybe
sometimes
some,
it gets lengthy.
But if you look at our contract, we've already kind of gone to that. We keep adding stuff, which makes our contract longer.
Yes.
But if you don't check the box, it doesn't pertain to you.
Right.
And that's, so we are kind of already doing that, I think.
What about, have you seen, is it Showing Time that has this feature now where you click to submit an offer?
yes.
I have
Yes.
not done that.
I've not tried it.
Either have I.
scared.
I don't
do
want
wish-
to.
Back to the coming soons.
Oh,
Sorry.
Missy?
Still mad.
Showing time. Why doesn't it have the coming soon activation live date on there?
Great question. Yeah.
That would help a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're just, you're just looking at the address really quick. Do you guys use that sometimes? Just go to showing time.
Yeah,
Well, if you're-
always.
Yeah.
It's fast.
And if it says coming soon, I think it should have that date
Activation
on our
date.
showing
Where
time.
it has the all
Yeah.
caps of.
Should also have a button that you click and the whole MLS sheet pops up at your showing.
Yes.
AI might take care of that for you.
Yeah.
Hey.
And when we're writing an offer, I've got all these things. We're writing an offer, we should, each line that we fill in and do Authentisign and all that, just voice activated.
Oh, that'd be.
Wouldn't that be great?
Do you know how many of your sellers or your buyers already have the listing on their phone?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why
You
I've
know,
gotten away from the paper
and-
too, because
yeah.
Well, I always bring a customer copy, but a lot of times they don't take it, or they
No,
don't
they
ask
don't
for
want my
it
paper.
because
they're
it's
like,
all
I
right
don't
there.
need that, and then you're stuck holding it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got away from
They don't
paper
want
too.
paper.
Yeah.
I guess it's age, though.
I think
Depends on
so
the age,
too.
If they want to take a paper, or
Right.
they're just tech savvy.
I always print it out just for each listing. So I have it as a quick reference. So there's something I feel that looks less professional about me staring at my phone the whole time walking around saying, okay, this one looks like HVAC was 2021.
You can definitely answer faster from the paper.
I agree.
So you're kind of, maybe I should go back to that because
Right.
I'll say, oh, hold on a second. And then I'm, trying to find the answer.
Yeah,
Or
but
you're looking something and you don't want them to think you're just on TikTok or
Yeah,
texting
right.
somebody.
Right.
Like, there's something about looking at your phone that doesn't give them the attention that they.
But
think they
maybe
need.
an app that's kind of the listings get kind of in there where the stuff to find is easier. It's the how old's the roof? Well, roof. Like everything's there.
Right.
Instead of like, oh,
Gotta read the
That would,
remarks.
yeah, that would be really good.
something
Read the
like
remarks,
that.
go back to the previous listing, try to find that out. Yeah.
Right at showing time, though. Fingertips right there.
Yeah.
Bullet points, whatever.
Well, then you could talk to
Yeah.
your phone and say, "How old is the roof on blah blah?"
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like that would be,
Right.
like we could say, all right, my client's questions on this house are, how old's the,
Right.
and where are the sellers moving to? Even though I know you don't know that, but for some reason they always want to
They
know.
always wanna
yeah.
know. Oh my gosh, why are they moving?
Yeah. So why are they moving?
Why are you moving?
I don't know.
I don't understand why they ask that question. I really don't get it.
It's not-
And
it doesn't matter.
occasionally somebody will say, "Well, I want to make sure there's not a problem with the house." If there's a problem with the house and that's the reason they're moving, they're not going to tell you that anyway.
Yeah. They're not going to say they hate their neighbor either.
No,
Right.
No.
That and like, what's the water bill? Well, there was one person living there, and you're a family of 4, so I can get the information, but it will be very different
Yes.
based on usage. You don't know if they keep their house hot or cold, but
yeah.
You have anything else about coming soon?
I don't think so. I need a
Sorry you
suggestion
started
box for
that.
showing time.
So I will say, because you mentioned AI answering phones.
Yeah. Text and all that. Emails.
Right. And
you lose
text.
the personal.
You do. However, sometimes you're busy.
Right.
And somebody will text or call, and we're in an instant gratification
Yes.
age where somebody might call and want to see a house, and if you don't get back to them in the next hour, maybe they're going to call somebody else.
Right.
So there are instances where it might help you retain some business, where
If they get an answer,
if they get an answer saying, "Hey, sorry, with a client right now,
Right.
if there's something you want to see, let me know. Let me know what times work for you. I'll get right back to you and see if I can get it set up." And then that way, you've established that connection.
right, right.
So,
I don't think there's anything that would help me more than somebody to invent how to stop the spam problem. Because I have a lot of clients, people now keep their phone number. They may live
Yes.
here for 10 years, but their phone number still says
Different
California.
state.
yes.
So how do you know, unless your phone says spam, which sometimes
Right.
it doesn't, how do you know not to answer that phone? You have to in our line of work.
Yes.
You have to.
Right.
So when you answer and they say, "Hey, this is so and so with whatever. We're just trying to get you're trying to get your Google impressions up." Do you just hang up immediately?
Yes.
Okay.
I used to talk to them.
I say no
Take me
thank
off your
you.
list. Yeah.
And then hang up, right?
Yeah.
And I say, "Oh, no thanks." Click. Because they've got an answer for no
I'm
thank you in
older
their
than
script.
I'm older than all of you, and I will tell you, every 5 years, the calls get worse.
Yeah.
I feel really sorry for elderly people in this country.
Very
me
much
too.
so.
I
And
do
they wouldn't
too.
get all those calls if they didn't work.
And the vulnerability, like if they're alone or lost a spouse, they might be asked a question and they're giving up
sometimes they're just
information.
happy their phone rings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody to talk
someone-
to.
yeah.
That's sad.
Oh,
That's
sad.
But I always worry about the information they give out. It's scary.
Somebody say something funny so we can end on a happy note.
Oh, we should end on a happy
Yeah.
note.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't look at me.
Oh, well.
Julie's the one that's been giving
I'm
us.
sitting here going, okay, I'm going to think more about elephants and
Yeah.
watermelons.
Yeah, what
I
other
don't know.
great quotes do you have?
Come on, Julie.
A
You got,
Judaism.
you got
Yes.
more in the bank here.
No,
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll just end it like this. So this was a lot of fun.
It was fun.
I'm really glad you guys agreed to do this. I'm going to do some more of these too. So I think this is going to be beneficial. Maybe these are more geared towards realtors. I don't know, but I feel like I don't know.
It's fun.
I want to try to help get everybody kind of on the same page and working together and open lines of communication. So that's the whole
Love it.
goal.
No,
So
they're great.
Thank
They're doing
you.
Good.
Yeah.
no, thank you.
ladies.
Murder music.
Look, here comes the murder music. Angie, Missy, Julie, thank you so much.
Thanks, Eric.
People listening and watching, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week.